What's up guys, welcome back to my channel, and for today's video we'll be looking at the Grand Mafia, and I'll be letting you free players or players to really spend quite little money on the Grand Mafia on how do you increase your combat stats. And I wanted to make this video because I'm sure many of you wonder, how do I get stronger if I don't really spend a lot of money, and which ways I can do to increase like my crew attack or whichever troops attack that you are aiming to build towards. So I will be listing all of these ways that you can kind of like increase your combat stats, and I'll be starting with a couple of really obvious ways you can increase your stats, followed by a couple of maybe less obvious ones. And yes, let's dive straight into the video to see what will increase your Grand Mafia combat stats. And the first one is obviously specialties, right at your UB specialties, where you have to kind of like put, let's say I got my combat set right here, and you can see that you can kind of like put all of your points right at combat, and depending on what you want to raid with or want you to attack with, you can edit this like specialties set to suit your needs. So specialties is the first way to of course increase your combat stats immediately and at a very low cost, and even at no cost if you have VIP 18 for the UB specialty set. Which brings me to the second way you can increase your combat stats, which is the Governor's War specialties sets. And you can see that I have a couple of different set already played out, and what I can do is to have one Governor's War set or a few Governor's War set to be placed in like a battle, let's say all bikers, all hitmen, or you can also mix all the points together to give you a balance of troops attack for each of the troops type. But I highly recommend you to have like one UB specialty set to focus on one troop type, and then the Governor's War set to focus on another troop type if you are planning to have a mixed raid. So this will give you a better balance. That's how I feel. So yes, Governor's War specialties are the second way for you to get more combat stats. And within the Governor's War specialties itself, there are several like Governor's War skills that you can use. One is of course mobilization, which increases your crew size, but this doesn't target your combat stats, so I will not touch on this. But there are some that will touch on your combat stats. An example would be like equipment augmentation, which increases the stats of your equipment by up to 5% at max level. So this can be one way for you to increase your combat stats on your equipments. And of course, which brings me to equipments, is a way for you to increase your combat stats, and this is I think one of the biggest contributor to increasing your combat stats, which is the equipment. Because within equipment itself there's many different aspects of it that can also further improve your combat stats. So equipment by itself, you can the best is probably like a legacy Godfather's gear or a King's legacy gear, and I've given you some examples over here, my equipment that you can kind of like increase your combat stats. Of course, the common grade is kind of like quite bad, but you can even bring up to a Grand Godfather or even like Grand King set for you to increase your whichever troops attack, or even like your crew attack or HP or even defense. So looking at this, you can see that equipment really gives you a lot of stats. From my Grand King necklace, you can see that it gives 37% increase in bruiser attack and biker attack, so that's quite a big jump. And within equipment itself, there are two different ways you can increase or make your combat stats even more powerful. The first way is of course to incorporate jewels into your equipment, and the second way is through family crystals. So I have an example over here, my Godfather's shoes. I have 3 jewels each, so for every equipment you can equip up to 3 jewels. However, you can't equip the same type of jewel. So for example, I have a biker attack jewel, I cannot equip another biker attack jewel even if it's of a different grade. So only one type of jewel in the equipment jewel slot itself. So for this Grand Godfather's shoes that I have, I placed 3 different types of troops attack to sort of like buff up my army, and if I want to have a mixed raid, I can have a mixed raid because I have a biker, hitman, and even bruiser attack jewel right at my equipment jewel slot. Yeah, so this is what I do to increase my combat stats. And lastly, of course, we got the family crystals, and these are only unlocked once you complete the investment portion of the family crystal, which unlocks the specific equipment slot for the family crystals. This works similar to jewels, but depending on how good your family crystals are, it can be even better than a normal jewel. That's what I think. Yeah, so as you can see, there's quite a lot of really good stats on my jewel itself. Just a sneak peek. After touching on family crystals and talking about how to unlock it, of course, we have to look at investments, right? Which is where the bulk, one of the main bulk of your combat stats would come from, over at the investment center. And a lot of your combat stats will come from the crew investment tree, which gives you a lot of the crew attack, HP and defense buff, and even like your individual troops buffs. And apart from the crew investment tree tab, there's also other ways you can improve your combat stats, like sort of like the city hall weapons, where it can give you these like deterrence, which drops or which reduces your enemies either crew defense, crew HP, or even crew attack. So there's different areas of the investment center where it can help you increase your combat stats more, and these are also considered like free, because even though it might take a very long time for you to like sort of like complete this investment, and I show you that if you stay in a good faction, you will obtain a lot of these like faction gifts, which accelerates your investment progress, because you will be able to get a lot of like different resources or even like speed ups and things that will help your game in the future. So investment is the next way which you can increase your combat stats. And of course, not forgetting, one of the good ways to increase your combat stats is of course over in the investment center. You can see that there is super weapons and luxury cars. So let's take a look at the super weapons first. If you have not checked out my super weapons video, I have a full guide on what I think would work for you. So you can take a look at that super weapons guide at the top right hand corner of the screen now, the video. And for super weapons, you might think that it kind of like works indirectly with your crew combat stats, but actually there's some super weapons that directly influences your crew stats, which is, for example, this like AN-94 assault rifle, which increases crew defense and crew HP at the start of the battle. So these are some of the super weapons that will sort of like directly influence your combat stats. Of course, there are others that you kind of have to have your enforcers to help you, and also a pretty good like squad attack damage, which overall like you get these troops attack from equipments, investments, and etc. Yeah, so this is how super weapons can kind of like influence your combat stats. Of course, the next one I need to cover is the enforcers. Enforcers is one of the biggest way where free players can get a lot of combat stats improvement. And if you have not seen my enforcer tier list, you can take a look at the video right at the top right hand corner of the screen right now, where I break down which enforcer is at the S tier, or even which enforcer is not really good, which is at the F tier. So I split the enforcer tier videos to those that is only free enforcers and those which are paid enforcers. So you can just take a look at these videos right now. Of course, Hellcat is one of the really good free enforcers to have that can give you really good crew attack buffs or even like combat stats buff. And after touching on the enforcers, on how it can really give you combat stats buff, similar to how equipments have the jewels or even the family crystals, enforcers have something similar called the signature weapon. And signature weapon, depending on the enforcer, can give you better combat stats, which I would recommend you to unlock. And it is not that difficult to unlock the basic attribute. However, for the exclusive attribute, it will take quite a bit of time. So slowly grind the kingpins, and I will even say that the exclusive attribute, free players can get it if you continuously grind the kingpins. Now, after touching the enforcer side, another way to increase your combat stats is through the luxury cars, which is one of the newer additions of the Grand Mafia. And the good thing about luxury cars is that you can get it for free. I've not bought any of the luxury car coupons, because if you notice, every day there is the Vengeance Chase or the Tempest Trials, which either gives you luxury car coupons or luxury car experience coupons. So these like daily events, except for Sunday, already kind of like give you the coupons that you need. And if you were to see my cars, I did not purchase any like luxury car coupons at all, and I'm able to get 2 grand luxury cars, even though they are not at the max star grade, or I'm still attempting to increase their star level, but it is possible for free players to get these great grand looking cars. And what is good about these cars is that it gives you combat stats. For example, over here, these are the combat car stats or the luxury car passives. So what this luxury car passive does is that as long as the luxury car is being placed in the parking space, you get the respective luxury car passive stats on it. And the luxury car stats buff would be depending on your parking space, what kind of like parking space is it. Because we got the luxurious parking space buff, and we also got like some of like the exclusive parking space buff. And what this does is that if you have this plus 100% parking space, you get the 100% full luxury car passive. Basically, your luxury car passive combat stats would be sort of like scaled to whichever percentage that your parking space has. So I totally recommend you to get at least 2 grand car, because in total you can hold up to 2 luxury car parking space, which gives you 100% of your luxury car passives as your combat stats. And of course, apart from these like luxury car passive combat stats, you get to see that there's different modification, and the modification stats or attributes only comes into play when you send these luxury cars into battle or into your raid. If I did not attach my raid with this particular luxury car, I will not receive any of these like combat stats from my luxury car. So I recommend you to have only one very good modification level for your luxury car, because I think if you are a free player, you cannot afford to have too many of these like modification parts and to even like level it up to a high level. So apart from these like modification like buffs that you see here, if any of your luxury car parts reach a certain level, you are also able to unlock more combat stats. As you can see, for example, for chip, you can see that at level 4 you unlock the raid defense, plus 1% to raid defense, and at level 16 it gives you a 10,000 increase in the raid size. So each of these basically like components would increase some sort of like combat stats in some way when you reach level 4, 7, 10, 13 and 16, where you get these additional like attribute buffs on your modification luxury car. So yes, after luxury cars, we will take a look at collectibles. So what collectible is that you attach whichever collectible to your babes, and your babes will be buffed, or basically your army is being buffed according to what is being attached or equipped by your babes. So these are passive, and no matter in what situation you are, all of these collectibles that is equipped by your babes will buff your army no matter what. And as you can see from the attributes itself, I get quite a bit of combat stats improvement from just collectibles alone. And the thing is that I did not spend any money on obtaining these collectibles. These collectibles are solely only obtainable for free players through Glory of Oakville, or even like Supreme Glory of Oakville, where you get these like collectible tickets. Each time another season of the Supreme Glory of Oakville appear, there's also like an increase in the collectible items. So there are more and more like these like grand collectibles that will keep appearing, and you're able to obtain these collectibles. If you're lucky enough, when you draw like 10 of these collectibles, as you can see, guarantee an elite or above collectible, you might be able to get some parts of a grand collectible or even a full grand collectible. So this depends on your luck, but it is very worth it to participate in the Glory of Oakville. Max 120,000 points, you can get 1,200 collectible tickets, so it is basically one full 10 times procurement of the collectible tickets. Can be pretty tough if you don't really have a good army or good combat stats to kind of obtain the kill points needed. Yeah, so back again, collectibles, very good way for you to increase your combat stats. And next up, we'll look at a few of our buildings here, the interrogation room and the hostage cell. So why I want you to focus on this is that for the interrogation room, you're able to obtain these respective combat stats when you execute a underboss in your prison. So I would consider this also like a free player thing, because you can get the execution order from the luxury coupons or those like premium coupons. Yeah, so you can basically get your execution order from the exclusive item exchange coupon or the luxury item coupon, which is the older version of it. And you just have to collect 12 of these coupons and you can exchange for an execution order, which immediately helps you to kill the underboss in your prison. And from then on, you're able to get this respective buff, 38% of each to your crew attack, defense, and HP, and of course some movement buffs. And if you have extra underboss in your prison, you're able to obtain a certain amount of crew attack based on the level of the underboss that is captured. So this is one of the ways where you can kind of like increase your crew attack right off the bat as a free player. And of course, not forgetting that when you attack a player, you automatically receive this battle enraged thing, which increases your crew attack, defense, and HP. So make sure enrage yourself because it gives you quite a bit of buffs. And of course, not forgetting, we got a couple of items which can also increase your combat stats. So we got like crew attack and we got like this crew defense, which can kind of increase your crew defense, but nobody really uses this crew defense boost. But we got this crew attack boost, and this crew attack boost can range from like 20% up to like 70%. So this is one way you can increase your crew attack. And of course, if people join your raid, you have a raid join attack bonus. So make sure that when you raid somebody, to have people to fill up your raid and not to have many people sending their max amount of troops, because when everybody does that, you don't have enough space for people to increase this like raid join attack in your raid. So make sure that when it's like the last few thousand left in your raid, to have people just join, send like one biker or whichever into your raid so they can get this additional raid join bonus, which really helps you and increases your crew attack. And next up, we will look at bibs. The only thing about free bibs is that you can only increase your combat stats on your special talents. So as you can see, we got different like special talents that can increase your troops HP or even like troops attack. But if you were to see some like premium bibs, you can see that there will be some stats will increase your troops directly, which is like the, for example, bruiser defense, which only requires normal talent. So on this part, for the special talents, it might be very costly because these special talent books come by quite rarely, and you might find it a bit difficult to increase your special talent. But either way, you would still definitely get these special talents one way or the other through events. So slowly increase your special talents, and wouldn't say this is a very big part on increasing your combat stats, but it's one way. And lastly, the newest way you can increase your troops attack or your combat stats is through the Bluewater Isle. And as you can see, when you buy some stuff to build into the Bluewater Isle, you're able to get some construction value, and the higher the construction value that you have, you're able to unlock specific troop stats, even like crew attack. So I think this is pretty well, because your manor will always produce you some credits that you can purchase and construct, and when you get more construction value, you're able to unlock more of these like combat stats. So yeah, this is the newest edition. The Bluewater Isle is the newest one. And lastly, we'll move on to buildings that will increase your combat stats. We got a couple of buildings which increase your combat stats when they reach level 25, and only one building which increases your crew defense the higher the building level it is, and it's the training center. Basically, when you reach level 25 for training center, you're able to get up to 10% crew defense buff. And also the next one will be hospital. For hospital, we get a straight 5% crew HP buff when it reaches level 25. Next up, another building that will give you buffs is the faction club. When your faction club reaches level 25, it'll give you a 10% raid attack bonus. So that's a really good buff there. And the last building we'll look at are the diamond labs. Basically, when you reach level 25 for the diamond labs, you're able to obtain 2% crew attack. Not too bad, I would say. And now there will be 2 additional buildings that you can obtain buffs for, like combat buffs for, when you have them at level 25 and above, basically like a star level. And the first building we'll look at is the radar. When radar is being upgraded to a higher level than level 25, you'll get a reduce in enemy assault HP. So what this does is that when enemies attack you, this would decrease their crew HP buff. So this would be up to a 10% reduction in the enemy assault HP when you have the radar at star level 10. And the second one is the faction club. Again, up to a 10% increase in your raid attack when you reach a star level 10 for your faction club. Alright, we have finished all of the ways that you can increase your combat stats buff the free way, and I want to have some notable mentions now. And how you can increase your combat stats is by having a good faction. And why is this so is that you can get better combat buffs through faction investment, and let me show you what I mean. Over here, faction investment, the defensive area, basically when you are being attacked by enemies, up to 10% additional biker attack, really good. And of course defend HP. And also if you were to see the offensive investment, you will see that you're also able to get more station troops buff, though not as helpful because most people wouldn't be stationing their troops, but still combat stats nonetheless. Of course there's also other like miscellaneous things, like over at your faction skills, you can actually get up to 15% crew attack when activated. Still a really good way for you to increase your combat stats. And I think this is it for a video. I've covered many different ways where you can obtain more combat stats for free players, and I hope you guys enjoyed this video and gave you some insights on how you can obtain these like combat stats. And of course, if you do enjoy this video, do hit the subscribe button right now, slap the like button too, and I'll see you guys again real soon for more the Grand Mafia video.